How dare you hold my son, you... I just saved your son's life. When I was 16, I'm 20 now for context, I used to work at a very local hotel since I just dropped out of sixth form, the British version of a stage before college. I took on a lot of roles and it was extremely hard work, unsociable hours, god-awful pay and harsh management. After working there for about a year, the general manager came up to me and offered me some hours down in our leisure area, which I graciously accepted as any simple-minded, desperate for money person would. This leisure centre was composed of a pool, small gym, jacuzzi, etc. Let me tell you, to work down there was no small task. It was hot for us Brits. 40-degree heat is kinda nasty, especially with a workload on your shoulders. Oh, for all you American viewers, 40-degree heat in Celsius is about 100 in Fahrenheit, I believe? Whilst on shift downstairs, you were in charge of maintaining the pool, cooking, cleaning, taking calls, providing show around for potential members and stuff like that. We offered a range of memberships to best suit most people, ranging from families to pensioners living off their pensions. Now then, the fun part. It was a very hot day, so I'm talking sweat everywhere. I was going about my duties of mopping the floor by the jacuzzi when I make out a small kid looking through the window, face and hands pressed against the glass, which I had polished about 10 minutes prior. No biggie, we were all kids once. And notice he's with someone, so I stop what I'm doing and head to the reception desk to greet them. I was greeted by the full Monty Karen herself. Needs no explanation. So I smiled, said hi, and asked how I could help. Can you let us in? Charlie wants to swim. That's fine, madam. Are you staying at the hotel? No. At the time, it made it sound like I was insulting her intelligence. Oh, okay. Are you a member? Of course not. Your prices are far too ridiculous. Now, I've dealt with a lot of trash whilst working here, so an attitude never really fazed me. I'm awfully sorry, madam, but the leisure facilities are for guests and members only. Are you effing serious? Do you know how far I've driven to be here? I'm meeting my friends upstairs in the lounge in literally 10 minutes. I clocked that earlier she said, can you let us in, which plays a key part as I put the pieces together towards the end. After a bit of back and forward and a lot of cursing in my direction, she finally left with the kid, vowing she'd have my job for this. Whatever, everyone says that but they never follow through, I thought. So I carried on about my business, sweating, cleaning, cooking, looking after the regulars who knew me very well as the night slowly comes to a close. So by now, everyone is either getting changed to leave or have already left. So the pool is silent along with everyone else. So I'm in the gym, wiping down the equipment when I hear a random sploosh. So I turn around and head out to the poolside where I see a fully clothed kid sinking to the bottom of the deep end whilst trying to get air. My instincts kick in and I'm in the water in seconds. I dive under, pull him up and check that he's all okay. He's crying, of course. He didn't mean to do what he did, he just wanted to swim. Fun fact, he couldn't. All the commotion attracts the attention of the regulars still around, who give me a hand in calming the kid down when all of a sudden, boom, 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 boom. I can hear from even the poolside. EM drink in hand, red-faced and primed for action. Get your effing hands off of my kid, you continues to march over to me. I beg your pardon? EM attempts a straight up swing for me whilst I'm tending to her kid. Luckily, the regulars step in and keep her from trying to maul me. He just wanted to swim and you were gonna let him drown! Right, I explained to you quite clearly earlier that you couldn't, and there is even a policy on the wall which states that all children under 12 years must be supervised. That policy was the one saving grace I had during this. It's literally in a frame in the front desk, so it's clear for all. I start guiding this poor kid back to his mum before she attempts another swing, even almost tried to throw a glass at me. You touch my son again and my fiance will effing kill you. By this time, the duty manager in station at the time was downstairs and by my side. We'll call him Jack. Jack explained that she really had to leave. She was causing a public disruption to the flow of business, and threatening staff never went down well. I'm not leaving until you sack that POS you call staff. Well, you'll be here a long time, but if it'll help improve the situation, you can happily explain your behaviour to the police, who have been called during this period. Well, that was it. All wide-eyed and tipsy, she yanked Charlie away and stumbled off in a quick pace march to her fellow Karen troop who were waiting for her at the entrance, and they vanished super fast. Jack checked that I was okay and if I was good in closing up and everything, to which I replied yeah, and continued closing. The regulars wished me well and brought me in a box of chocolates and a crate of beer the following evening. We had that sort of relationship where we all knew what each other liked. I handed in my notice a few months after that because the money just wasn't good enough, and crap like that was becoming all too common. But this story always crops up every now and again during story time. Moral of the story, don't work in the hotel industry. So by that logic, does EM think that OP shouldn't have jumped in to save her drowning kid? These entitled parents, man, I just don't get them. EM wants to steal my birthday cake. My mother terrifies her kid and her into backing off. So I've recently encountered an entitled mother at Waitrose in the UK. This story features me only as a partial spectator and my mum as the victim of the EM, or EM the victim of my mother in all honesty. Happened over a week ago, but only now getting the time to write it. For some context, all of you here in the UK know that this is a fairly pricey grocery store aimed at middle upper class. Me and my parents rarely go in it unless we have a good coupon or want cakes, as their bakery is utterly delicious and not as pricey as everything else. This happened about a week ago, and recently I had my 21st birthday, and my parents have decided to order me a whole rainbow cake as my birthday cake as a treat, which only cost about £20 or 16 bucks. This cake is always at a high demand as it is one of their best sellers, meaning that the only way you are likely to get one full is if you order it online or come really early to the store. You simply place an order and a cake is reserved for you at a date, where you can then pick it up and pay at the store. Simple enough, right? I know it comes off as a little childish, but the cake is delicious and I love colours, so heck with it. So it was the day before my birthday and my parents had driven to town and I came along for the free ride, and at the end of the day, about 5 PM, we headed towards the shop to pick up the cake. By the time we had gotten into the shop and into the little bakery section, we did not see many people around waiting to be served, but we did see a lot of people who had stopped dead in their tracks to watch a lady. I want to say that she had the "I want to speak to your manager" hair, but she didn't really. She looked like the most common middle-aged blonde with no identifiable taste in clothes, tacky and straight up ugly. The most memorable thing was likely her massive nails and the frickin' infinite amount of rings on her fingers. Tacky fake rings to match her ugly accent that she waved as she yelled at the employee behind a counter. With her, she had a girl who didn't look over 10 or 12. I can't really tell kids' ages anymore in modern times. I heard an audible sigh from my own mother, who then rolled her eyes. It was a busy day. As we got closer, this is the conversation I could make out. "What do you mean you don't have rainbow cakes?" she yelled. Employee: "I'm sorry mom, we're all out for today. We sold our last daily patch at 2 PM. "Well, go check again, you idiot. I need it for my daughter's birthday. It is a special," she elongated the words, "occasion," as if talking to someone challenged. I didn't want to pass judgment on the child until I saw and heard this. The little girl started whining and banging on the counter. It was very tall, so she couldn't reach anything, so instead banged on the lower half of it, kicking and crying. "Mummy, you promised! I want it! I want it! It was my unicorn!" She then emitted this ugly and high-pitched screech that made my back shiver. "Mom, please calm down, there is nothing I can do for you." "Well then make one! That's what you're here for, aren't you, you lazy cow? This country is going to poop because effing lazy immigrants like you get frickin' jobs and do nothing useful." She berated the woman. I'm not even sure why. The woman at the counter was English and spoke it perfectly. Heck, better than me. "Mom, you need to calm down. Don't tell me what to do, you dirty immigrant. I'm here to spend money. Go make a new one and make use of yourself. I need it today and no later. Where else do you think I'm gonna get a cake for my little princess?" By now, the EK was thrashing everything about. They picked up the food from their mother's basket and chucked them about in protest. "Mom, I'm sorry, but we are unable to start baking anything at this hour, and even if I could, I do not have the time." The EM continued staring at the employee as if she was an alien, speaking in another language. My mum and me are not pleasant people when we are tired. My mother simply shoves past the woman and approaches the counter. Pushing the woman aside, making her gasp, my stepfather stood between my mother and her. "Hello," she said with a smile, as the employee wasn't doing anything wrong. I knew my parents were worried that they may have sold the reserved cake, but my mum decided to ask anyway. "Excuse me, I heard you said you ran out, but we reserved a cake, and if you still have it, we'd love to pick it up." The employee smiled and said, "Oh, you must be Miss Blank." My mother nodded as the EM stared at the interaction. She tried to yell and ask my mum to move, but she simply ignored her like a bad smell in a large room. The employee proceeds to open a second cabinet and take out a box, open it, and show a full rainbow cake. "Wait, you said you didn't have any, you freaking liar!" "Yes, Mom, we have no available cakes. This was reserved to be picked up at 5 PM today." The EM then looks at my mother and tells her with an angry look, "Listen here, I was here first. This is my daughter's cake. Give it to me. My little darling has her birthday in 2 days. Well, this one is for my daughter's birthday tomorrow. You should have ordered it like I did." The EM looked at me with a disgusted look. "You're an adult. What the frick is wrong with you? You are too old for a cake. And you are too old and ugly to throw a tantrum." "Excuse me?" You heard me, or are you deaf as well as brain challenged? You know that iron look, that moveless turn of the neck, where the body stands in one directly like a rock and only the head moves? My mother turned to her and calmly asked in a booming but calm voice, completely ignoring this conversation. Did you order one online? No, but... Did you wait here? What? But you're freaking... I'll take that as an uneducated no. I'm not giving you anything, and your spoiled brat can suck it. Learn how to shut your brat's mouth too. Do not tell me how to parent. The kid was now crying and screeching. My mother turns to the whining kid and yells at her in a booming voice that shook the room. Shut up, you spoiled brat. The kid visibly spooks and turns dead silent, all colour drained out of its face. Looking at her with the most terrified look in her eyes, not even crying. She stared at her like a deer in headlights. My mother turned back to the employee and said with a smile, "Will that be £20? She nodded her head in a yes and thanked her for the payment and ordering the cake online. The entitled mother then suddenly tried to push past mine and grab the cake on the counter. My father's shoulder rose out of reflex to get in the way, but luckily during the conversation, I had shuffled close enough to harshly step forward towards the gap in between, right onto the EM's foot, making her yelp and look down onto her broken front heel. "You fat lady!" she yelled. I smiled and said, "Oh, my bad, shouldn't have gotten in the way." "You stepped on me!" "I sure did," I replied with a smile, and moved away as my mother started walking away. The woman tried to chase after us, but couldn't, as she had a small limp and her child just tied up a little. Honestly, maybe that will teach her a little more humility and an appropriate way to be upset, rather than throwing a tantrum. My mother would have crucified me if I ever pulled something like that as a kid. I want to say I hope that kid learned a lesson and doesn't grow up to be like that, but I highly doubt it. At least I got my cake and had a great birthday and now have a fun story to tell. If I could, I would give this family an award. They dealt with this person so well. Unfortunately, I can't because we're on the internet, so I'll just give them an upvote instead. These are the entitled parent stories I love, where the entitled parents gets shut down. I want more of this. Anyway, that is the end of another episode of r/entitled parents. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, like, share and subscribe for more Reddit content from me.